persuasive, visionary, proactive, self-confident, resilient, willing to take responsibility for personal actions, anti-fragile, has a growth mindset, adaptable, driven, intrinsically motivated, solutions-oriented. The above are skills of those with an entrepreneurial mindset. And I would see these skills alive and in color in a way I never expected. In 2015, when Work Wisdom was about to be launched, we experienced major challenges threatening our chances of succeeding. However, with a strong desire to bring positive organizational behavior to companies and nonprofits, and a very strategic mind, Kedren, who, by the way, would never have described herself as entrepreneurial, embraced the responsibility of running the company. And here we are, 8 years later. Who knew? She's going to be so mad that this is my intro. But the point is, it takes guts. The managing director of the Martin Trust Center for MIT Entrepreneurship said, entrepreneurship is much, much bigger than just startups. Entrepreneurs need to exist throughout our society, not just in venture-backed startups. They need to exist in government, big corporations, nonprofits, and they need to exist in academic institutions. We need entrepreneurs everywhere. Welcome to The Behaviorist with Work Wisdom, where we help you adopt high-performance mindsets, behaviors, communication, and culture. I'm your host, Sarah Colantonio. Our intention for the Behaviorist podcast is to share accessible, concrete practices that you can weave into your whole life to begin to shift towards joy and meaningful achievement. Today, we're turning our focus on leading with an entrepreneurial mindset. We're grateful to have guests who not only have an entrepreneurial mindset, but are entrepreneurs and leaders in our community. So first, I want to thank Deb Rant, the founder and owner of FIG Industries, which is a brand development and strategic marketing firm, for being here. Nate Shea, the founder and CEO of SecureStrex, a cybersecurity firm. Also, we happen to have gone to high school and college together, so it's wonderful to have you here today. And Andy Garman, the managing partner at Pipe Dream, which is a website and digital marketing firm. Thank you all so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
So I'd like to start with the notion that we need entrepreneurs everywhere. In that earlier quote, he said that this is a mindset, it's a skill set, and a way of operating that's going to be needed universally for the challenges we have. And if we're going to address climate change or healthcare, education, we have to be able to address these major challenges. So this idea of we need entrepreneurs everywhere, do you agree?
Absolutely. Sorry. Who goes first? Yes, we in our company we're always looking for people with an entrepreneurial mindset, and it's who I want to work with every day. Outside the company as well.
Yeah, because it's a growth. To me, it's a growth mindset too, and people that are trying to learn. I always want learners surrounding me because I learn from them, and then they learn from me, and it just is this. Great environment to work in, and while make ourselves better in the company and the organization and the people around us. So,
I think there are so many organizations that can benefit from someone who's able to think differently or willing to think differently, right? And the idea of, a government agency or bureaucracy or, a school or, even beyond small businesses, having people who are able to approach something from a different perspective is hugely valuable. So I would agree also.
Yeah. I think that also what he's getting at too is that we have many problems. We have all of these issues and they seem to continue to build. And as an entrepreneur, or just even having that mindset, you think about, okay, well, we have to solve it. We have to figure this out. We can't just sit back. And I think that it goes against, I think, the normal way of thinking. Yeah. If something is not working, then we just drop it and move on.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurs are like, heck no.
Yeah. I worked in a lot of government environments.
Okay.
And it's easier to be an entrepreneur in some environments than there are, than others.
Yeah.
And I would say in the government space, it's tougher because you've got to follow the rules. There's all kinds of regs around that. But and I think it can drive those entrepreneurs out, and that's why you see a lot of these small businesses and other areas growing, and there'd be a slower progression within some of these other institutions that have just been doing it the same way for a long time. So I think some areas you're going to find entrepreneurs thriving, but there are ways to poke through. I think in those more those structured institutions. So
Okay. I got to put my glasses on so I can read my question here. Okay, I'm really excited to ask you this, and Nate, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
Why are we so inspired? Like, as a society, why are we so inspired by entrepreneurs?
I think a lot of folks think that being an entrepreneur is really sexy, and and then you see the Bezoses and you see the Musks and you see the change that they're making and the pushing through, and obviously that can come with a lot of financial freedom, a lot of freedom of time. They think, well, I could be my own boss, and so there's some fallacies in there, but but absolutely, it's a lot of hard work, and I think that tends to get kind of put under the hood or the covers and not really seen until you're knee deep into it.
Yeah.
But I think the freedom of time and the freedom to control your own destiny, I think, is probably what makes entrepreneurship, so coveted.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
What
do you think, Deb?
Add to that. I agree 100%. I also think that when you own a business, when you're an entrepreneur, people think you have it all figured out, and you really don't. I've had a business now for 23 years and made so many mistakes along the way, and actually have been working with Work Wisdom for the past 5 years, which has been a huge help. 5 or maybe more, 6 maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, they think that if you're leading the way, that you have it figured out, and I certainly didn't. I feel like I'm only getting my groove on now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think also it's something that's completely foreign to so many people. If you think about who are the celebrities in our culture, musicians, actors, it's very easy to see what they do and how they do it. I mean, there might be a lot that goes into being an actor that people don't see, but it's much more concrete than being an entrepreneur. So I think some of that vagueness maybe is interesting to people. I think there's a lot that happens behind the scenes that people acknowledge, but maybe they don't know, what all does it take to be an entrepreneur? What does that even really mean? They see what entrepreneurs have created that touch all of us, right? Whether it's a car or Facebook or something else,
But they're not realizing the stress. It's consistent stress, really, that you have to be able to carry that burden of, things aren't going to go right all the time. And whether it's financially or, your team, you have to be able to carry that burden.
Yeah. And what are the pieces, what are the building blocks that go into ultimately being successful? I mean, there's a lot behind the scenes that has to happen, right?
Yeah. A little bit of luck, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good timing.
Yeah.
A market.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
The list of traits that I mentioned in the introduction: persuasive, visionary, proactive. I feel like I need to say them again because they're so good. Self-confident, resilient, willing to take responsibility for personal actions. Anti-fragile. Is everybody into that term, anti-fragile? The idea
absolutely.
of it's more than resilient. You bounce back even better than when you went down the first time.
It was the first time I've heard that term.
Okay.
You kind of put the two words together and figure it out, but that's a great way of putting it.
Growth mindset, adaptable, driven. I like this intrinsically motivated too, solutions oriented. I'm curious for each of you, maybe Deb, you could answer first. Right now, which of these traits resonate most with you?
Absolutely anti-fragile.
Okay.
I do feel that, in the past, we got through COVID. We're like, woo, we got through. But then it's been almost like, you're surfing. You don't know what's coming next. Yeah. What's the next wave? And so I would say just really not protecting your team, but preparing your team for bumps along the way, and being able to shift as needed has been really important over the past 4 years.
Yeah. Okay. What else, Nate, out of that list, like right now?
I look at them all and I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit of, I got to have a little bit of each of this because it's the only way to really do this, I think. And, but there is a lot of resiliency in this, especially in the early years of starting up. Like you've got to be able to take the punches and just keep moving forward. Yeah. And especially when be successful. And I think as you bring on more folks and you employ more people, being self-confident, someone that they can follow, someone that can catch the vision, that's really important. And so some of these traits do shift over time. But I think always willing to take responsibility for your own actions is really important, and not shifting blame, but taking, one of my favorite books is called Extreme Ownership, but taking extreme ownership on what you control.
I love that. I've never heard of that. Okay, yeah. I gotta. Thankfully, now
extreme ownership. Yeah, that's good. So.
Yeah.
I'm going to chime in with proactive. I think that's the one that resonates with me the most. I'm a big believer that, no matter where you are in your business journey, it's not about waiting for things to happen. It's about steering and driving and being intentional with kind of determining a direction and taking active steps to move in that direction. Yeah. So I actually use that word proactive a lot with our clients. And I think about it a lot in our own business, just taking that next step, being intentional, steering, being proactive. I believe in that.
Yeah. And so my next question had to do with when you first started out and you didn't know what was ahead of you. What resonated more for you then? Maybe you weren't even conscious of it. Maybe you were just being proactive because you had to be. But Andy, when you think back, what was it taking for you?
Confidence, self-confidence.
Okay.
The ability to walk into a room and sell it, and communicate the vision without any self-doubt, so that the people you're communicating with pick up on that and then believe in you, right?
Yeah.
Because you believe in yourself. So confidence was a huge part of it, I think.
Okay. What do you think?
So the question is about, what it really took in the beginning.
Yeah.
And our company, our business might be a little bit unique in this way, but we really rely on relationships. And, especially the magazine, Fig Magazine, it's about building relationships, maintaining those relationships, collaborations. So it's not just what we're doing, but how we make others successful. And that has been a huge part of our success. So luckily I'm an extrovert and I love people. So building these relationships and maintaining them has really been the key to our success.
Okay. Yeah, I love it.
Well, I would say for me, early on was persuasiveness, because I had to sell something. I had to get people on board, and so I really had to be persuasive. I didn't have a vision early on. I didn't know what core values were. I didn't have like all these things that you kind of learn about 4 or 5 years in. You're like, I guess I should have that, and you have them. You just kind of like have to articulate them.
Yeah.
But so I would say early on was persuasiveness. Really having to get over yourself, and also like getting beat up. Like you're just going to have to roll with the punches. Yeah. And early on, especially me being a little sensitive soul, I was just like, oh my gosh, how could he said that? Or put it that way. Yeah. And you learn to like, all right, this is business, and and this is just how it works. So, but yeah, you have to be intrinsically motivated too. I mean, to get going, especially if you don't have partners beside you to kind of collaborate. you better have a whole lot of internal gas.
Yeah.
So,
I also want to add scrappy.
Scrappy.
When we started, we had zero funding.
Yeah.
No backing whatsoever. So money, which is always the elephant in the room, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have any of it.
Yeah.
So
Neither
for
did
the
we.
first three or 4 years, it was like, okay, you know, we're everything was done with. There were two of us, and so yes, money is always a problem when you're starting.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for saying that. That was like the big challenge I said in the introduction.
But you can't take no for an answer, right? Whether it's your first couple of clients or your first couple of bank meetings. I mean, we've all probably been turned down for a line of credit at some point, and
We had multiple people who did not believe in us.
right,
Yeah.
right. So you believe in yourself, and you force of will it to happen, right?
yeah, and you got to persuade those bankers or those investors to hand over money that you're worth it.
Your first great hire, right?
Yeah.
You find that person who you think is going to really help move your business forward, and they've got lots of options, right? So,
but not being afraid that if it's not a first grade hire, just keep looking.
Keep looking, right.
And to like, okay, this one's not. It doesn't mean the next one won't.
right,
So.
right.
Yeah, so humble beginnings, like don't be afraid of that. I started by myself in the attic,
Yeah.
in a corner.
Yeah.
So
And Bezos started in his garage with a bunch of doors,
Yeah.
as his desk. So, incredible. It's great stories.
I started in an attic too, at a folding table and a piano bench.
yeah,
Gosh.
not glamorous at
No.
all.
Yeah. That's good.
It didn't make the website.
I wish back then.
I do too. I
I
would
had a
take
photo
pictures.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was before you'd grab your phone. And
Right.
take it. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious too that where did you get this from? I mean, where does it come from, Deb? Where is it just part of your personality, this entrepreneurial mindset? Who inspired you? Where does that intrinsic motivation come from?
I grew up here in Lancaster County, actually on a farm in Mannheim,
Oh,
and went to Kutztown University, and that's where I learned my.
Oh, go Golden Bears! Me too.
Yes. Oh, great! Great. Yeah, I was in communication design,
Okay.
and kind of got on a bus, literally, and went to New York City and said, I'm never coming back. So that was my goal. So in New York is where I really kind of got my style and drive. And became motivated. I do think, working with Work Wisdom has allowed me to understand, maybe some of my intrinsic, triggers and what makes me keep going. But I do think that New York experience in the 90s was critical to my future.
yeah.
My parents, I was the first to go to college,
Yeah.
so I didn't really have an entrepreneurial mentor that at the time. But when you're in New York City, you can just look around you, and they're everywhere.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I love that. What about you, Andy?
So it's an interesting question. I would probably credit two things. One would be my parents. When I was young, they really exposed me to a lot of different things. We would go to museums, we would travel, we moved a couple of times, and, there was always something new to learn or something new to see. And so I think that kind of set me up to enjoy change,
Yeah.
which I think is a little unique. Okay. And the other is I worked, one of my first jobs was working in the concert industry, and the concert industry operates like the military. I mean, the show is going to start at 8 o'clock. The microphone has to work. You have to figure out how to get this gear into that truck and get to the next city. And, the company that I worked for worked with a lot of great people, and that kind of mentality that you keep putting one foot in front of the other, you problem solve, you always have a plan B, how you're going to get from this milestone to that milestone to that milestone. It has to run. There's no other choice, right? And so that was really, I think, formative for me also.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'd say for me, there's a couple little, I guess, thumbtacks on the wall of the journey there. But I grew up very poor with early on, at least until about 8 or 9, until my dad got out of private education into public education, and I have some doozy stories, and I just know I didn't want to be poor.
Yeah.
and the other thing is my mother had an incredible work ethic as well. I mean, she's a German and a farm girl, and it was a lot. So just watching her, and I remember her telling me too, like 90% of success is starting. Yeah. And so that's always stuck with me as well. My dad was a very big extrovert, and so and he, if he failed, he just picked himself back up. And so I think a little bit of that as well. And then I had the opportunity to just work underneath a few entrepreneurs, and learning checks and balances, and the books a little bit. But I was never in a boardroom. I was never in the back office. So I was always delivering, always an engineer. And then when I started this, talk about clueless on like how to have a org structure or anything like that. It was like you just did work. And so didn't really have a huge background. It's not like I have a businessman in my family who could and I'm excited for my kids though, because I have a little bit of that now, and they're starting to get some interest. And so, but it's a mindset, I think.
Yeah. So you can be born with it, or you can foster it, and that's really, I love that. When you think about some of those descriptions, I think of them, those traits of entrepreneurship, I think of them as superpowers, and it is powerful. It is powerful to have a growth mindset. It is powerful to be able to take the hits. It's incredible. Also, sometimes with great power, we can, burn things down. And so I'm wondering what gets you into trouble? Am I asking too deep, personal of a question? But
no, I mean, I'll go first if you don't mind.
Go for it.
But my strength is my biggest strength, I think, is also
the
opposite of my biggest weakness as well. It gets me in trouble.
Yeah.
And that is, I'm a risk taker. I listen to my gut, data be damned, and, just keep, using my sixth sense to move forward, but it can also be my greatest weakness.
Yeah.
And that I don't follow the data sometimes, and that I go too fast, and then I get burnt. And so my strength can also be my Achilles. So
I would say the same thing. I tend to have the same expectations on others. I put those expectations on others that I have for myself, and that's unrealistic. And that was a big challenge for a long time, and it came across as lack of empathy. But it was actually just, I have very high expectations, and I tend to project those.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one. I think I've heard someone, I forget who, say that you can only expect someone else to be 70 or 80% of what you are, and you have to be okay with that, because nobody's ever going to be you, right?
I've heard that many times, but it is our responsibility as well to set the pace and to set the standard.
Yeah.
So we're told to do both things.
Right.
We have to set the standard by coming in early and doing the work. Yet we can't set the standard. We can't have that expectation for everyone else. So that has been a big challenge for me.
Yeah.
How do you, I'd like to tie this to your leadership style. Like how does your entrepreneurship impact how you lead? It must be so direct. Am I right?
I kind of lead by doing, I think,
Okay.
and I try and set an example by my actions within our little organization, making sure that things are well thought out, making sure that kind of I always do what I say I'm going to do. I think that's a big one, right?
That is, yes.
And nothing bothers me more than when someone says they're going to do something and they don't. Oh, it burns me up.
I'd rather not. I'd rather them not tell me they're going to do it.
Right, exactly. So, that's it for me, just trying to lead by example, set a good example, be authentic, be straightforward.
Yeah.
wear your emotions on your sleeve a little bit and just be who you are, authentically.
Yeah.
I would say for us, we have a core value, freedom to own it. And it's kind of like it's an entrepreneurial slogan, I would say, in that I want our folks to be able to take on things without having to be micromanaged. So I think that's how maybe that philosophy, my leadership philosophy, kind of bleeds over. I get in trouble sometimes because people don't always own it the way they should, or take that freedom. But it can also it can breed a lot of success as well, and just getting out of the way and letting them work. Great book. Another one is Netflix's. I don't know if you ever read the No Rules Rules.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, it's a great book. So it was one of those things where we were failing. It was one of those it's more of an aspirational core value for us. It's like, we are not doing well here, and I want our team to, not have to look to me for every decision, and just to be able to go with it. And sometimes you get burnt, but you get good people and figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. One of our core values is courage. And so we encourage people to take risks. And that means they are going to fail sometimes. Ooh. And so we have to be prepared to support them. And I think one thing that I've really been working on over the past couple of years is just being authentic. Because I think in the past I've always felt like I had to be perfect all the time. And my team actually appreciates when I tell them I'm struggling with something. Or, I can be a little bit more real and transparent, and then they help.
I think that's a great quote. You should put that on a T-shirt. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be authentic. I think authenticity just gets you through so many situations, right? You can have a pretty big mess up, right, in a lot of different areas, whether it's with your own team or with your clients or whatever. And if you're just authentic about it, you own it, you don't try and put up any sort of facade or, obscure anything, that authenticity will get you through a lot of tough spots.
Yeah. I think that's huge. I think that's really huge. What do you think? Well, I want you to think of two things here. What is, for you, do you consider one of the most challenging things about entrepreneurship? But then on the other side of the coin, what is so rewarding about it? I think this is kind of personal too. Nate, what do you think? What's most challenging, and then what's rewarding?
It changes over time. I would say early on it was just a lot of pivoting, a lot of going down the path a little bit, not working, boom, move, and there's a lot of those micro movements early on, and then as kind of the company's evolved, is really trying to mentor leadership and trying to get out of the way, and not having all the answers, and being humble to be like, I brought these guys in, these gals in to do this specific work, get out of their way. Yeah. So those are some of the challenges, to say, I don't have all the answers and I got to get out of the way.
Yeah. Okay.
When you want to be the guy with the answers. And then rewarding is, again, the flip side of being able, the ability to bring in those folks that would want to be around you and want to be led by you. You do look back and like, wow, I'm leading a team here, and why?
Yeah.
Like, what did I do to deserve these people to work around? So you get to work around some really great talent, and you learn from them. And so I'd say the rewarding piece is just outside of having some of that freedom, but it took a lot of time to get there, but having a little bit more freedom in certain areas, and then also just having great people to work around.
Yeah, I love that. What about you, Deb? What do you think is most challenging, but what's most rewarding?
I think, especially in the beginning, the most challenging part would be finding team members that have, that are passionate about, and that are as excited as you are about what's happening, and that are getting behind it, catching that vision. And I think now at this point, 20 years into it, it's the most rewarding part is actually cheering them on and seeing how excited they are, and that things are moving forward without me. So that's super exciting.
It is.
Yeah. So it's very similar to what you're saying.
Yeah. Do you agree, Andy?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything that's been said, and I would only add to it. I think one of the things that that I find conceptually challenging about this that we all learned a few years ago when COVID hit is, I mean, it could all blow up tomorrow, right? So we could all lose those key clients. Something external could fall into the mix that just really changes things. We've talked to people who, Amazon has decided to white label a product that they sell, and boom, they're out of business, right? So it can all change. But then the flip side of that is, my personality is that I love learning new things and I love challenges, and so figuring out how to navigate this kind of constantly changing landscape of, we all have these businesses that are made up of people and processes and a service or a product. Like, it's all very intangible. And so how do you manage this intangible thing and help it move forward? Yeah. I'm fascinated by that and I love it.
So I love what you just said about all these things working together to make something, right? And that any time the wheel could fall off.
Right.
And then you're like, okay, now what's next?
Right.
I did find one of the challenges early on is, we had these great ideas, but we didn't have the process.
Yeah.
So it takes both of those things to really be successful, and I didn't value the process enough. Mm-hmm. And now that we have that process, that has changed everything. Mm-hmm. So I think realizing where your skills are and then finding people that can do the other things, but also valuing those other things.
Yeah.
Enough. So it isn't a really interesting mix, and hopefully the wheels don't fall off.
Right. Hopefully the wheels don't fall off.
You figure out how to put more wheels on. So.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur? They want to embrace this mindset because it's so powerful, but maybe they're facing some barriers. Maybe they don't have support, or maybe, I don't know. Do you have advice?
Do it.
Yeah, I was gonna say
do
it sooner than later.
Just go for it.
Yeah.
Just go for it if you believe in it.
I was thinking about this one, and I heard someone say something just recently that I remembered. It's focus on the energy givers and stay away from the energy takers who will drain you. So if you find your focus and then find your people that are going to help you get there, and just cut out all the other noise.
Yeah.
So my word for next year that in my head is about focus. Because I think if you focus on anything, you will be successful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I listen to Tim Ferriss from time to time, and he has this drill that he goes through, like, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah.
And failure's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
And you can learn a ton from it, and putting people around you that will be supportive when you do fail, and real friends. We had some lady said the other day to me. She's like, "So who would you call at 2 a.m. to bury a body?" And I was like, "So having those, you know what she means is like, who are your true friends?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And having that support group around you is really helpful. But I find it funny. My daughter's in this business school, and I just laugh because I'm like, man, you're gonna drop that kind of money on a business school? Just go out there and start 3 and fail them, and then you'll learn a ton from doing that. All right, like so. I would just again say start it and learn a ton from it. And if you're successful, great. If not, figure the next thing out. Maybe the market's not there, and you gotta find something the market wants. But
I want to chime in that the 2 people I would call to help bury a body are Sarah and Kedron from Work Wisdom.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I would also want to mention that longevity. I know, like, it's good to pivot and move on to something if something's not working, but I do encourage people to stick with it. I mean, it does take time to really build something, and it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with that 1,000%.
There's this analogy in Jim Collins' one book, Good to Great, where he talks about the BBs, and then you get the cannonball out. So you shoot the BBs, and you just shoot, and then you hear the ping, and you're like, oh, okay, there's the market. And you get the cannonball out, and then you blow it away.
Go for it, yeah.
Just like, and that's where the longevity, just, double down.
I love that. It's really been fun talking with all of you. I feel like you sort of helped people realize that entrepreneurship is very cool and it's an adventure. I always think of it as an adventure.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen. Yeah.
I would just say one other thing too. What I wish I would have done is keep a journal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Because,
Or take
and I've done
pictures.
this not consistently, but most years, at the end of the year, I like to go back and just kind of write down what the good things that have happened, because it's very hard to put things in perspective. You can be staring at a tree the whole time and just, it sucks to stare at this tree. But when you back up and you look at the whole forest and like, wow, all right, there was a lot accomplished this year.
Yeah.
So I'd encourage anyone out there that's in the middle of this or wanting to do it is just keep a journal, because so much happens that you'd really being able to reflect on that is really helpful.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm sorry.
That's like,
I
that is such a good idea.
I interrupted your.
No.
thought.
I think the connection is it's an adventure. So you want to keep track
Yeah.
of that.
Every day
journey.
is so full.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I'm like, wow, it wasn't all good, it wasn't all bad, but it was full.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, thank you so much for your wisdom. I'm so grateful for all of you for being part of this movement of helping others in the workplace enhance their individual and their collective team performance. Thank you, listeners, for downloading The Behaviorist. We hope you'll subscribe. Please reach out to us through our website, workwisdomllc.com, where you can enjoy Work Wisdom Press and productions, ask questions, and you can also give us suggestions for other topics you want us to explore. As is our custom, we'll leave you with a quote. I love this one. This defines entrepreneur and entrepreneurship. The entrepreneur always searches for change, responds to it, and exploits it as an opportunity. Peter F. Drucker.